The two speakers that we have today are Seth from NUST and Kinza Shavar from IBA. So as you all know, Seth is a very popular member of the NUSTian community. He has over 11 years of progressive management experience with the delivery methodologies and agile coaching, and has worked with a range of companies from startups and small, medium enterprises to big names like Rogers, CIBC, Freedom Mobile, etc. He's currently working at Walmart as a senior technical program manager. And then we have Kinza Shawar, who is from IBA. She's a certified PMP, and she's currently working as a project manager at Nature Conservancy of Canada. And I think, Kinza, you can take over from here. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Farzia. Welcome, Seth. We're very excited to have you over. And I think what really brings me close to this subject is the fact that I work in a very creative, chaotic environment. And that's where, more than project management, whatever the guidelines we've been told and we've agreed and we have seen in the world does not really apply all the time. So reality is quite different. My experience stems from startups where I lived in a pressure cooker environment. And now I think in the last 2-3 years, I've stabilized myself at Nature Conservancy of Canada. And this makes me at a very good position to talk from a perspective of aspiring project managers or product owners or product managers, and not just project or product managers, but also any sort of knowledge worker. So even if you were a lawyer, even if you were a teacher, you could take the principles that Seth and I would be talking about today. So Seth, over to you. Do you want to say something on that?
Thank you so much, guys, for the lovely words. And like I said, excited to share the floor with you today, Kinza. I love Agile. I started off as a technical guy. We were doing waterfall back then. But then the industry's evolved so much, right? And the requirements, the business, it's very fast paced. So there were certain adjustments that had to be made to our delivery methodologies. And this is where Agile came in. And I think even on a personality side, I think it just appealed to me more. So I made a mission in my life to switch over to Agile for the most part, and I've never looked back. So I'm not here because, I just want to deliver a session. I'm here because, I actually enjoy Agile. I try to practice it even outside of my IT workspace and my personal life. So I just wanted to share those things with you today. So looking forward to the session. Thank you. Back to you, Farzia and Kinza.
Thank you, Seth. So let's get started. Seth and I will tag team with each other. It's going to be an interactive session. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand. We've got Farzia who's going to be facilitating the session. So setting some ground rules here. Everybody is welcome to post their questions, raise their hands, ask the questions. As we're going through the presentations, you don't have to wait till the end of the presentation. Seth and I believe in the values of Agile and would like to get input from our audience at that very stage. So that's how we're going to do it. It's an open-ended interactive session, and we're going to go ahead. So let's move into our next slide, which is going to let us know the agenda. So the agenda for today is just give a quick overview of what Agile is, some principles and values, some of the methodologies, as in the flavors of Agile, some of the key techniques to be Agile, and then we're gonna go into tools for project management, especially in an Agile approach, and then we're gonna look into some examples all around the world. During this time, you can share some of the examples, or you could put your questions out there saying that, hey, I am, for example, I am a teacher, how can I be Agile? And then we can discuss about it. After that, we'll move into career progressions, and I think that Seth and I believe that that is the part where you're going to be most interested in. And then Q&A. So this is the agenda, this is the format of today's discussion, and I am happy to move forward. So let's talk about a little bit of history. So I usually start with a basic question, and that is, why do we need another approach for running projects anyway? Isn't a method like the one extensively documented in the PM book not sufficient? Well, I think the answer is simple. Different types of project require different methods. And you do that in your everyday life as well, right? We continually customize our approach depending on the situation. For example, Steph and I chose this presentation depending on the audience. And we didn't think that, okay, we're going to take the same presentation as we do in our daily life and apply and stick it right here as well. So we don't act like robots, right? We adjust our methods to be most effective for each situation. This same concept applies to projects, and some projects, especially knowledge work projects, in a fast-moving, complex environment, call for an agile approach, as Steph said. So I always like to start with this, that initially humans wandered the earth as hunter-gatherers. When people started planting crops and herding animals, it changed the society, and that was the agricultural revolution, right? As a result, people wandered less, they settled in one place, and that was one type of revolution that this world saw. The next big transformation came with the development of machines and factories when people left their farms and villages to move into cities. This was the Industrial Revolution, right? Which eventually led to the development of classic project management techniques. Now, that was the time of classic project management techniques, including Gantt charts, functional decomposition, localized labor. In turn, these developments led to creation of more advanced project management, such as work breakdown structure. Steph, I don't know if you have any cool instances with work breakdown structures, but I see project managers coming in and they have this thick work breakdown structures, and it drives me nuts. Has it ever happened to you?
All the time, Kinza, and one of those things that obviously we fight back on, right? Like, you don't need to come up with all those detail level subtasks and whatnot. First, understand the project, look at the holistic picture of what we're trying to deliver, right? So we're going to talk about the principles and values. So we feel work comes, like, the scope of work comes second. First, you need to understand, like, what is the driving force behind it? How do we even formulate a working team, a self-organizing team, right? So there are a gazillion other questions which are more important than, you know, the WBS structures and those subtasks. So yeah, it's very frustrating, and because I come from a technical background, we can only empathize with what our engineering teams and what our IT teams have to go through every time a PM shows up with that, you know, hat and a stick. And, you know, so totally.
So the current stage, and this is what we think is the most complicated one, the current world, and that is the information revolution, focused on information, collaboration, rather than manufacturing. It places value of ownership and the ability to use that knowledge to create or improve goods and services. So as Zach has been talking about, that if you are a knowledge worker, you could be agile. We are in the information revolution, and this revolution relies on the knowledge workers. These are the people with subject matter expertise who communicate their knowledge and take part in analysis or development efforts. If you have a misconception that knowledge workers only exist in the IT industry, well, that is wrong. They're also engineers, like Steph said. They're teachers, they're scientists, they're lawyers, they're doctors, writers, and many other employed today. In fact, knowledge workers have become the largest segment of the North American workforce. So let's talk about why Agile then. So back in the day, at the brink of starting into the information revolution, it used to take years and years and years for each project to be moved into production. So whatever was once thought of that, yes, this is what we're going to do, was produced 3 years or 20 years later. In fact, the greatest lag is the space shuttle program, which was actually started in 1962. and was released into 1982, 80s, or around 1980s. Imagine the obsolescence that could have happened. Imagine the morale that could have gone down, demotivated employees. I mean, I can't even see what I have put myself into. So this is when a group of geniuses came together and they said, that's it. We're going to now get rid of all these old techniques of planning, work breakdown structures, beautiful color-coded Gantt charts, and we need to just deliver. So this is where the iterative approach of Agile came in, and let's move into that. So I want to talk a bit about what's the difference between a waterfall traditional project management and a modern project management. And Saif, I need your help because I know that you've transitioned from both the roles, and I am also transitioning from both the roles, and it takes me such an effort to communicate to my stakeholders that you're not going to see a project plan from me at the start of the project. I'll go in a very iterative approach. So let's just talk about some simple key principles and differences between them. So this chart right here tells you a very simple comparison. In a traditional project management, you've got two key principles that people are sticklers about, and that is planning and control monitoring. In fact, one of the knowledge areas of project management professional is monitoring and control. Imagine the kind of stressful word it is, monitoring and control. So yes, that is one thing. Project success is measured by, have we delivered what we set out for? Okay, have we delivered on the budget that we set out for? Okay, have we delivered on time that we set out and imagined 6 months ago that we deliver on this time? The reality is none of the project falls on this line. None of the project is successful on this line. It never happens. It hasn't happened in 7 years of my life. What about you, Seth? Have you seen that?
I'll just say that it's very painful to watch how the projects have to suffer because you're just being too restricted, right? Not too flexible. Like the rigidity, I think, is just baked into that process, and because of that, the modern demands of IT delivery they get ignored. So yeah, all the time. I think there was some statistic available as well that 55 or 60% of the projects run the traditional way are not very successful.
Yep.
So we have the numbers, like numbers don't lie. Don't take our word for it, but yeah, numbers don't lie. Second thing is, like I said, you want to deliver stuff to your customers sooner. 20 years is what it took for that space program. We just don't have that luxury of time. Our competitors are going to beat us to it. So we definitely need something more robust that Ken's is going to talk about.
Yep. In fact, I think of an example here, Seth, and that is, I'm not sure if people are aware of this company called Twitch. Twitch is a game streaming platform. And this is how it didn't start. It actually started that the folks at Twitch thought, okay, we're going to come up with a calendar add-in functionality for Google. And then Google was like, well, why would you do that? We're going to come up with our own calendars. And then there was Google Calendar and Gmail. So Twitch went like, oh shit. Now what do we got to do? Because we couldn't deliver what we had set out for. So they tried something else. They tried something else, and they tried something else. And then eventually, one of their owners used to wear a GoPro camera everywhere. He would live stream his experiences everywhere. So the folks at Twitch thought that maybe this is the user behavior. And maybe we should come up with a platform where people can live stream their, like a reality show for themselves. And then they thought, okay, you know what? Customers are not really interested in showcasing their lives, but there is a great market out there where you could be a gamer and people would watch you. You'll get paid for playing games and people are going to subscribe to this gaming platform. So that is how Twitch developed. And in 2017, Amazon bought Twitch for $970 million. Imagine that. Imagine the concept of user feedback. stakeholder engagement, delivering, learning from the environment. So this is a great segue into understanding what is a modern project management. It depends on the competitive environment. In about a day's or even a less than days time, knowledge and technology gets obsolete. We depend on creativity and innovation, just like the Twitch's example. And then project success is measured by the delivery of business value. Now, you're going to ask, how do you measure value here? The way we at my work measure it, and it's according to the PMI principles as well, you have to have numbers. Just like Seth said, numbers don't lie. So we measure it through the net present value, the return on investment, the internal rate of return. These three are the key principles. And the most important one is, whoever your sponsor and stakeholder was, is he or she satisfied? Have you taken whatever they wanted into your product? So that is the success of the project. There's no official role of a project manager. So there is no project manager in the modern project world. It could be a coach. It could be a scrum master. It could be a product owner, and it could be a project team. They all have to work together towards one vision, one product vision, one goal of the whole project. So this is a simple comparison between traditional and modern project management. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to our audience as well, and maybe ask us a few questions if you have.
Yeah, hi, hello, Kiran. This is Anam. Thank you so much for putting together this very informative session. So I just had one question. So do you think that future is agile or waterfall would be relevant in some cases? And what do you think are the future knowledge areas to look into? Like I have my PMP, so do you think it would become irrelevant soon and I should be, learning the new agile skill set?
Do you want to take it first?
I was just going to say we're going to cover a lot of these topics during the course of a presentation today. Second, just to maybe quickly answer it, I don't think knowledge goes to waste. Whatever you've learned, that's fantastic. That's how all of us have started. You just build on top of it. So I think of it as like small modules of knowledge that you can incrementally add on top of your arsenal of toolkit and skill sets. So if you have PMP, that's fantastic. You can look into other certifications like ACP and whatnot. Second thing is how the future is going to pan out. Nobody knows. That's what Agile also says. Don't worry about it. You just need to have that thought process, right? It's a mindset. As long as you have an Agile mindset, you will figure it out. You don't need to overplan your life for the next 20, 30 years. So I'll just leave it at that, and we'll cover most of this in the presentation. Over to you, Kinza, if you want to take it up.
Yeah, no, so I would totally agree with Seth here, but I can understand Anam's frustration because I'm a PMP, and with the kind of where the world is going, I'd be very honest that it's a cultural change, and it's a global change, and it's happening. None of the big companies really value a Gantt chart anymore. They value reports. They value stakeholder engagement. They value delivery of business value. So I think it is a good idea to always have the mindset, an agile mindset, deliver incrementally, instead of just thinking that PMP was good. PMP is a solid foundational certification. In fact, from my experience, PMP got me a raise as well. But ACP is just staying with the world, just staying abreast with how the changes are happening, becoming a Scrum Master, just adjusting and acclimatizing yourself to the new things that are happening. But in any case, I don't think this session is not to burden you with another certification that you need to add into your arsenal, but it's a change of mindset that we're asking, especially project managers, product owners to have. And it's you will see in the manifesto and values as we go forward. I think that should be a good answer. If Anam, if you have got more questions, we'll move at the end of the slide. We'll talk about career progression as well.
No, that answers my question and absolutely makes absolute sense. Thank you so much for that. Thanks.
No worries. Okay, So let's move into our next thing, which is understanding Agile. So if anybody asks you what's the definition of Agile, I need to use that word, khuda ke liye, do not use methodologies that I think Agile is Kanban, I think Agile is Scrum. It's not. Sorry about that. Agile is a mindset. It's a feeling, and it's a concept that you need to ingrain in your daily work ethic. And I'm using a lot of warm and fuzzy words. The reality is, as long as you're nimble and as long as you're open to change and stakeholder interaction, you're being agile. In PMI terms, Agile is a time-boxed, as in it's time-bound, iterative approach to software delivery. Now, I'm using the word software delivery, but let me give you an example right here. Saif, I'm just so fond of examples. I'm so sorry, but if anybody has had a chance to go to Netherlands, I would really, really ask you to visit Rijksmuseum, which is a national art history museum in Amsterdam. This museum before 2003 was a place that nobody wanted to really go. So they all stuck their heads together and they're like, what is that thing that we need to do differently? So I'll keep it short. A museum, great history, thousands and thousands of artifacts staying there. If you go into the museum, you start with you go into the painting section, you start with the oldest century, and then you move to the new times. Oh, and if you're not interested in painting, you leave that department out, you go into the sculpture, and then you start from the oldest, and then you come to the latest. You move into ceramics, and you do the same. So this shows how that organization was really designed, siloed, hierarchical. We don't want that. And that's why the museum was not even performing. So what they did, they put a cross-functional empowered team together and they said, why don't we divide the museum into eras and centuries and produce all the artifacts of that century and put it together in one place? Because you know how artists and people think? They think, they interact with each other, they learn from each other. So is the concept of language, right? So that is where this museum in 2013 opened with enough fanfare, and they had now put together these cross-functional teams, which divided from 10,000 of artifacts, they put it down to 8,000 artifacts. And that is how this museum started getting more revenue as well. And now they were like, okay, now we've done this. How do we keep this museum relevant? They made another cross-functional team, now this time from a security guard to a product owner, and they only cared about customer experience. Give us every knowledge that you have on customer experience and tell us, how do customers interact with this museum? It's one of the best museums today. So when I write software delivery, do not think that it's just confined to software management only. So what happens in Agile, instead of delivering everything at once, you show it to the customer in bits and pieces of iterative incremental products and gain their feedback. And this is all dependent on a user story. A user story is just a map of how a customer is going to use a product. So for example, if I'm using a phone, how am I going to interact with this phone to get to my goal? So these are user stories, and we prioritize them in a product backlog. And then this backlog stays there. You can add things, you can remove things as the time moves on, and then you deliver in small iterations. Steph, you want to say something on that? You're a Scrum Master, right? This is your daily life.
All that I want to say on this slide is Agile is not a proper noun, right? Like Agile, people start using it in a sentence and they put it with a capital A, right? That just means now you're just glorifying something which didn't want to be glorified. It's not a cookie cutter approach. Agile is a mindset. And then you have a gazillion of methodologies, how you want to deliver Agile, how do you want to practice Agile. So just be cautious. Don't fall into that trap of treating Agile as a god. Agile is a way, it's a way of life, right? It's a way of working. So just treat it as that. It's a common noun. It's an Agile with a small a. And we're going to talk about different approaches and methodologies shortly. But again, just want to warn, please do not treat Agile as a software delivery god.
Yes, it's not a silver bullet. And that's what you told me in the last call. I think that's a good segue into the Agile Manifesto. Now you've got 12 principles here. I'm not asking you to learn it by heart, but I'm asking you to look into it. And in fact, if you look into it, you will find yourself, oh my God, this sounds very, very common. One of the first one is our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Now, if you are a bachelor's or an engineer, you've heard these terms: continuous delivery, continuous improvement, valuable software, valuable product, stakeholder, customer. But this really bakes the idea into it through methodologies like a Scrum, like extreme programming, like Kanban. Welcome changing requirements even late in the development. And now you'd be like, how does that even happen? If I've coded something into a software, or if I put together a working skeleton, how can I invite and welcome something so late in the development? How would it not break the whole system? Well, Agile tells you other techniques of coding and programming that doesn't really do that, doesn't really call for breaking the whole system. And I will digress into programming and coding right now, but I'd love to say it. It's called refactoring. You bring the concept of refactoring. You change a certain place and it's so modular that you don't break the whole system. You deliver the working software early. They say, in PMI terms, they say, eat your dessert first. Instead of eating your lunch, breakfast, dinner, and then dessert, you eat your dessert first, because that is how you interact with customers and clients. You bring the value to them at the forefront instantly, incrementally, and iteratively. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. And this is where I say, you could be an Agile product owner, you could be an Agile developer, but your idea is as good as it is in your head, unless you show it to others, unless you show it to the stakeholder. So that is where the concept of development and operations comes together. That's the concept of DevOps. They work together. Developers make the product, operations go and deliver the product. So these two departments need to work together. Build projects around motivated individuals. Now, in Agile teams, we are self-empowered, self-motivated teams. We've got one strong goal ahead of us, and we don't really need a micromanager to tell us that, here's the beautiful color-coded Gantt chart. Here's your milestone delivery. How much are you doing on a daily basis? No, you don't do that. You've got daily stand-ups for that. You've got daily scrums for that, because you are totally tied into the vision of the project. The most efficient way of communication is face-to-face communication, something that we're doing right now. I can't stress the importance of answering a call and squishing a bug together. And this is what Agile is about. You don't have to write lengthy emails. And honestly, if I receive a lengthy email during this time in my workday, I see the length of the email and I go like, kya yaar? Kitna time laga? How much time did this person invest in doing this? So this is the Agile Manifesto, and I could actually ramble on and on. But the summary is working in small value-added increments, using build and feedback loop, learning through discovery, value-driven development, failing fast. Fail. Failures are they love failures. If this code doesn't work, great. Okay, move on, move further. And then there's continuous delivery, continuous improvement. Chef, I have been rambling on. Why don't you talk about through an example here?
Absolutely. Like Kinza said, nobody's expecting us to memorize these 12 principles. Even I don't know that. It's just that certain pieces of the principles are just gonna like appeal to you naturally, and you'll notice it because you might think like that. Maybe your personality is geared that way. So pick out those pieces and try to see what either you can improve on, what is something that you can continue doing, and what is it something that maybe you should stop doing, right? So like an introspective as a professional one. Second thing, to me, what appealed the most is the incremental portion of it and the customer feedback. I did a master's from McMaster in entrepreneurship and innovation. We were using the lean methodology for software development and even for startups. Then surprisingly stick with me so much that when we were discussing the foundations of NUST in Canada as a chapter within Canada, we try to use a similar approach: small, incremental, baby steps, do one thing, test it out, get the feedback from the community. Is that something that they want to see more of, or not something, that they that is adding value to them in their lives, to newcomers, to immigrants, to people who are coming here on PRs or work permits or visit visas, or even education, right? So understanding who your customers are, trying something, getting that feedback and redoing, trying it over and over again is something that I guess just stuck with me. So apart from, like Kinza said, apart from the 12 points, just try to understand what is it that Agile is really asking us to do. How is it that Agile is asking us to think is something that we have to do an introspective about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. We condense this into the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto. Individual interactions over processes and tools. Project managers, especially folks who are PMP certified, and I'm putting myself into this basket, we're sticklers for processes because we love showing off. We love putting together a beautiful project plan, and we love putting together a burn down chart and showing tiny little checks and reds and yellows and greens. No. Stop doing that. Simplify your life. I was using MS Project for the longest time, and I still use it. By the way, I'm not underscoring a tool. I'm just saying simplify your life. But I took courses of MS PowerPoint, MS Project to make sure that my certification would be glorified because I can produce beautiful reports out of it. And let's just simplify life. And I would put something here as a disclaimer that it doesn't apply everywhere. But the idea is the more bigger, the more larger, the more wider the process is, the slower your delivery is going to be. Working software over comprehensive documentation. I can't tell you how many times I've moved into a project and they've called this the planning phase, where they're going to plan out the product that they're delivering. They have no idea what they're delivering, but because there's so many unknowns and knowns into the project, but they put together complete coded documentation of what we're going to do. Come execution, that documentation is thrown out, that documentation is changed. So that is why we say bare minimum documentation just because you had to share knowledge, just because this was the right thing to do. That is the kind of documentation we're looking at, lightweight only. Customer collaboration over contract negotiations. Now, if you're really interested in Agile, we can have a separate session on Agile contracting as well. Agile techniques are completely different when it comes to scope management and contracting. Responding to change over following a plan. So these are the condensed values of the Agile Manifesto. At this time, I will open the floor for questions on the mindset. Frizia, do we have anyone, or do we have anyone from the comments from the chat section who'd like to say something?
Checking the chat. So Ms. Anam's asking if anybody knows about the finance industry and how prevalent and relevant project management is to that industry. And whether this is adding to that banks hire a lot of project managers. And yeah, that is a good point. I've worked at CIBC. I have a lot of friends at RBC and TD. TD, in fact, a few years ago, they started their own framework of Agile. Good or bad, I'm not going to comment, but the idea is they wanted to try something new, right? They wanted to challenge the way that they were delivering software. So they came up with an in-house framework of delivering software, number one. Second, Scotiabank, they set up a digital factory. Again, just speaking volumes to the kind of change that a big organization like these top 5 banks, right, are trying to do, so that they can better address their problems. They can faster deliver value to their customers. They can reduce the overheads, like Kinza's talking about, in their internal processes and documentations and reports. So definitely they need project managers. the word project managers is a generic word right now in the industry because the industry is undergoing a change, undergoing a transformation. So at times you'll hear Scrum Master, at times you'll hear an Agile coach, at times, it's project manager, program manager. But when you read through the JD, you will recognize the fact that they value Agile a lot. So to answer the question then, yes, they do need a lot of project managers, and especially around Agile in today's world. Kinza, over to you. Anything?
Thank you. I'll add something very interesting, and that's going to come into my later case studies as well. But I think this time it's more relevant. JP Morgan Chase. I mean, talk about a financial institution and you don't think about JP Morgan Chase. I don't agree to that. You will always think about their name. Recently, they lured Apurv Saxena from Google in their AI project management team. Why the heck did they want to do that? They understand the value. In about 6 months, they deliver 3 products. 3 banking financial products to the consumers. In about 6 months of time, they relegate a lot of their products as well, understanding the customer and the industrial change. So thinking that project management is not something for banks is going to be a false facade. That's what I think. As Warda mentions in her chat history as well, that go today in RBC, CIBC, Scotiabank. In fact, I once interviewed for a project management position at Scotiabank. And as I was moving into their office, I saw a Kanban board. Kanban is an agile technique, as you will see. And they had a very simple sticky note way of doing it. And by the way, agile doesn't mean sticky notes. I see that people think that as well, but they had a Kanban board which said to do, pending, completed, and they had all, and I was pretty impressed. And so this is a quick answer to the fact that this approach applies in all industry. I've given an example of museum, like who could have thought that it works in museum, but it does. So financial industry, why not? Moving on, let's talk about some of the technique. Oh, well, let's talk about mindset again. I actually thought that we were moving into this has always stuck with me. When I was doing my PMP, and those of us who have completed their PMP, this was the triangle that we saw, and they were like, okay, so if you're gonna change the scope, you have to change resources and time as well. If you have to have a quality deliverable. That was the part where waterfall was, that if you make a variable change in one end of the triangle, the other 2 ends are gonna move as well. Agile, on the other hand, goes like, you know what? Features and scopes will change, but we need to we need to motivate ourselves towards strong commitments and operating boundaries of resources and time. So as you can, if I were to tell you, this section will change, but resources and time will stay together. It will stay fixed. So this is the idea of Agile project management. And this is how you can convince your sponsors and stakeholders that why do I need to take this approach? Because this reversal of the traditional triangle means that Agile teams allow scope to vary within the fixed parameters of cost and time. In other words, we aim to deliver the most value we can by X date within X budget. And by the way, let me tell you that this is such a big convincing factor for them, because in most of the projects, what happens, oh, late ho gaya, oh, more budget required. Although we begin with a high level vision of the end product, we can define upfront how much we'll be able to get done. That will emerge as we get closer to the target date. You might think that this approach doesn't make sense because it won't work for tangible industrial projects. For example, if I am paying to have my bathroom remodeled, I want the whole thing to be completed, not just most of it. Like I don't want a pot to be installed and say, well, we don't have a shower. Well, okay, that was a bad example, but you want everything to be done at the same time. But let me tell you, remodeling a bathroom should be a defined, repeatable process. Mark my words, defined, repeatable process with little R&D or uncertainty. That isn't the kind of project that calls for an agile approach or an inverted triangle of constraints. Knowledge work projects, on the other hand, are characterized by experimentation, uncertainty, and the end product can be refined forever. This is why we need to determine acceptable operating boundaries, which is resource and time right here, which usually take the form of cost and time. For example, I could I could say that when I was developing this with this presentation with Chef, we came up with the agenda first, that these are the constraints that we will operate within, because I and Chef can go on and on about Agile. So that is, and this has stuck with me, and this will stick with me for the rest of my life, the inverted triangle. Chef, anything on that?
Just wanted to maybe, again, mention that certain things that we should avoid as project managers, as project leaders. You cannot just dump bodies on a project just to speed it up, just because, the project's red or something. That's why it's important for us to recognize human beings, developers, engineers, they have certain constraints. So it's maybe a smarter idea to say that the feature set is something that can change and evolve, and you can reduce or decrease, increase the scope. But time is something that you can't control. Resources is something, again, you can't just magically put 5 more people and expect that it's going to get delivered in the next 2 sprints or something. So it takes time for ramp ups. I've done a major transition here at Walmart, and that involved like literally changing the entire delivery teams. It takes months for people to ramp up. So the issue with the traditional approach was we just assume that because we have fixed requirements, we can play around with time and resources. Just the reality is a little different from that. So that's just a warning again that I'm putting out there. Do not treat people and bodies as servers that you can just, with the click of a button, just trigger it online and it's going to start performing right away. Just be careful.
Yep. Thanks. With that being said, we move into some of the methodologies that are used today to be agile. Scrum, you might have heard of, very common, very popular. You've got extreme programming, you've got lean software development, Crystal, dynamic system development method, adaptive software development, feature-driven development. Now, all these methodologies listed here have their own certifications, have their own complete different scientific research, empirical studies, dependent on the fact that these are proper scientific engineering methodologies. We're not going to invest our time on going through each of them, but I really want to quickly move ahead and talk about some of the common ones. We've got Scrum, we've got extreme programming, and then we've got the Kanban. There are quite a bit of differences, but the idea is same. The idea is deliver fast, deliver incrementally, do it in about 2 weeks, called iterations or sprints, talk to your teams, talk to your customers, and try to manage through pair programming. And that is actually, pair programming is a concept of extreme programming, where the whole team is involved for testing, unit testing. So if you are interested separately, we can talk about these specific methodologies, but the difference between them, and especially with Kanban, is that you limit the amount of work that is going to be done in each sprint and amount of features that are going to be delivered in each Kanban sprint. But with Scrum, you have the opportunity to refine your backlog, to reprioritize a few things, and then deliver into next sprint. I have a feeling, Saif, that I might be confusing my audience right here, because if I go into each detail here, it may get muddy and misty. So we're going to stop here, but we're going to open the floor to any questions that you may have regarding these methodologies.
Yeah, so we have a question from Eamon. She says, is Agile and Waterfall mutually exclusive, or can they go together hand in hand?
Yes, you take it.
Sure. Eamon, totally depends on the situation. I've had projects 100% Waterfall, 100% Agile, and hybrid is what we call it, Waterfall plus Agile as well. Back when I was running a software house in Pakistan, we used a hybrid approach because Agile wasn't popular back then in Pakistan, 1. Number 2, We didn't want, because we're a startup, we're a new company, limited budget, clients and whatnot. So we didn't want to wait too much before showing some sort of a business value to our customers. We didn't want to wait a few months, because it becomes too uncertain, and then the clients can obviously change their mind, and the user requirements could change because their competitors are doing something different. So we said, overall, this is something that we're trying to do, but then we're going to break it down into like 3 or 4 different chunks. Let's call it iterations for now, for simplicity. So to answer the question again, yes, you can have just waterfall, you can have just agile, or a mix of both, totally depending on your situation. I don't think I can say one would always work and not the other one. We would have to, I guess, understand what the requirements are. Sorry for the loose answer, but such is life. It's uncertain.
I think what we're trying to purport here is that Agile is not a silver bullet. And Agile is not to be used in isolation. Agile is a mindset. So like Saif said, it could be a hybrid approach. But you know what? I can empirically answer your question in this way. If you are to produce a project or a product where all the scope is fixed, where the features that you will be delivering are fixed, and it is for sure that you're not going to change it, and this is it. I mean, dande ke zor pe, this is it. You got to deliver this. In that approach, you got to use waterfall, because that has some monitoring, controlling aspect to it. In fact, most of the infrastructure projects that you see today are based on a waterfall approach. And there is a logical reason to it. You have to set the foundation before you begin the building, right? You can't just put the building first and then think, "Arey haan, hame foundation lagana hi tha." So these are the incremental approach that doesn't work on fixed scope. But let me tell you, even infrastructure projects have a little bit of flexibility into it. For example, when it comes to wiring, when it comes to putting together or running down cables, and that's where suppliers come in. So always use a hybrid approach. Look where your stakeholders stand. If you're producing something unknown, people don't have any idea, but people have a vision, that's where you go agile. So I hope that answers the question to some extent, but I can help you, because as an MBA, we're fond of putting things in a quadrant. So I'll give you a quadrant, which tells you where to use waterfall and where to use agile after this session.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
One side comment. Another successful technique that we've used, I guess, in the consulting space that I was in, you can have the bigger phases like start and end and deliveries and done dates as the waterfall, and then the day-to-day, the delivery of the development of the software is something that you can do incrementally, maybe through Scrum or Kanban. So that's, again, a creative way to combine the two techniques.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move into some of the example here. I talked about JP Morgan and Chase. I talked about a little bit of Google, but let me tell you, Google Gmail, Google Chrome is a love child of Agile methodologies. I use fancy words, but it's a production of Agile methodologies. Talk about 3M. In fact, the leaders at 3M do not produce products on just Agile. Even their mergers and acquisitions have been Agile. And I can present a case study to you where back in 2017, around 2017, when 3M acquired Scott Safety as adding to their personal safety portfolio, they did that acquisition through an Agile method. And if you have been part of some acquisition, you would know that it is hard, especially the integration of an acquisition is pretty hard, because you've got sales, you've got research, you've got salaries, you've got finance, you've got marketing departments that's coming. And in my experience, the worst is the culture, because you're trying to marry two cultures. That is where Agile was taken. And within 6 months, that's what they had, 6 months. And they did that acquisition perfectly well. If they had done it in a traditional way, it would have been a completely different story. The recipe was they put together cross-functional teams, self-empowered. They put a big board together saying, what is the vision of this integration in the next 6 months on that visible Kanban board, let's say. Visibility is key on Agile. You have to make your work visible. So what they did is, for example, in 6 months, we need the salary data. Just giving an example of this company. They would put that need on that board, and all the teams will self-empower themselves to get to that need. And all the teams would know what we need to do in order to produce that need. Now, Spotify is another great example. And I know Seth loves this example. We've got a video as well, but you can see it at your own time. Spotify is a mixture of what? The playlist, the software, the recommendation, all these little modules of pieces of Spotify are interconnected as well as modular. So for example, the development team of the recommendations engine could come up with a new invention or innovation, and they could release that out without impacting other departments, and at the same time cohesively connecting all the departments. And that is the modular production of Spotify. It's a great example of how agile they've been. Now this dude right here is Saab. Saab is popularly known for cars. Actually, they stopped manufacturing cars back in the day. They're known for their fighter jets. And they come from the glorified land of Sweden. You've got IKEA there, the girl with the dragon tattoo. Saab came up with manufacturing an airplane. Come on, airplanes are hard and expensive to build. But they came up with the Gripen E-Series. I remember, yeah, the Gripen E-Series, which is a completely modular plane. It's manufactured in a way, I hate the word manufacture, but it is created in a way that they say, okay, you've got a more sophisticated engine. We'll take that old engine out. We'll put the new engine in without impacting the whole airplane. So this is, let me tell you that because of this idea, what they have done is they have the ability to produce faster. They've adopted Scrum. At first, it only began in the software group, but it ran through the whole organization. It's a plug and play airplane, just like a Lego. So I think they have a very keen, and I know we've just got 5 minutes and I could ramble about the case studies here, but I guess the point is clear that it just takes 22 billion. That's about half of what it would cost to keep the 65 American built F-35s aloft. This is how it is. So with Agile, I want to talk about move into career progressions, because now these were some examples that we put together, but I think we're out of time. We've got some scaling frameworks as well. Again, we've given folks a bit of flavor as well. Seth, if you want to say something, we can go ahead. But
we can skip scaling for now. If need be, we'll have another session. But let's cover the rest.
We talked about DevOps as well. But I think let's just quickly move into some questions and answers and talk about career progression, because that's what the folks are interested in after listening to our beautiful stories and case studies. So team, I think we're open for questions. Talk about career progression. Talk about how you fit in yourself. So we are welcoming all your questions.
I see a question from Ihsan on the chat. If you can go to the tools section, he's like, can MS Project or Excel be used for Agile project management to visualize the work that we're doing? Ihsan, so remember how Kinza just said there are 4 values of Agile, and one of it is interactions and individuals and interactions over tools and processes. So we're not saying tools and processes are not important. All that we're saying is give value to individuals and those interactions, the human interactions. We feel that has a higher value, regardless of the choice of the tool. That is secondary. So you can have MS Project, sure. We're just because Walmart projects are so complicated at times, we do have to make these crazy Gantt charts just to visualize things and show to our stakeholders and executives how it's going to pan out. Excel, again, a popular one. I'm not saying make a detailed WBS on Excel, but it does add value in certain cases. We have Jira, Confluence, and a gazillion macros that you can add on Confluence. And maybe, you don't even need an Excel or MS Project, because, Confluence alone will give you the power to visualize your project plans. Third, we have ticketing systems like, Trello or Jira or even Relay, right? So all of these applications allow us to visualize the state of work, how tickets are moving, what's the speed of that movement, throughput, bottlenecks, which of these sections that we didn't talk about Kanban much today, but which columns have the most workload, why are tickets not flowing through? So all of those things we can visualize and analyze through these tools. And even if you don't want to use any tools, just use a sticky note, put it on the wall and visualize. So I think tools are secondary. People and interactions and the communication that you do among yourselves, those are more important. Kinza, anything else?
We don't have questions, but I think we tried to answer the first question that was posed by Anam. And she said that I'm a project manager, I've done my PMP. How does that move into my, how does being agile move into it? And we tried to answer that question as much as we could. We answered through experience. I would say if you're an aspiring product manager, if you want to become a product manager, getting one of the agile certifications is going to really glorify your resume, because you would understand the methodologies through which we produce products. None of the companies have, and I can statistically prove that, none of the companies have waterfall methods to produce a new innovative product. If you want to be a part of a company that produces run-of-the-mill products, of course, go ahead, be a PMP and you will shine. But no, for product managers, you got to do one of the Scrum Master or become, what else could we have? Seth, you could take one of the.
Yeah, there are different paths you can take. I think of it as three broad categories. One is you can be, you can work around the space of delivery and operations. You're working on certain software, you get requirements from business and you're delivering. Second is you can become a coach, whereas you're helping other delivery teams and the delivery stakeholders to better understand their bottlenecks, improve their efficiency, reduce the overheads, be faster to market, deliver more value, whatnot, right? So you can help them with the coaching angle. And the third piece is training. Training is something now that you're doing to certify other people. So you can take all three possible streams. Some people do all three, which is crazy and fantastic. So totally depends on your aspirations. You can also then go on to become a product owner if you like. You want to be closer to the product action. You can. Somebody asked on the group, on the chat, that what about data science? I guess does it have any correlation or career progressions in terms of project management? Yes, it also does. You start off maybe as data scientist, and then over time, if you want to manage a team, that's again where project management comes in. So definitely a correlation there. I think there was one more question. I'll have to go through the chat, but Kinza, just fill in if I've missed anything.
So
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kinza.
No, I think you were about to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's another question from Anam. Good certifications to look into for PM, Agile PM, and are they offered by PMI, or are there other bodies that offer Agile knowledge framework?
Kinza, you can pick the first one.
Yes, so I'm doing PMI's ACP, which is the Agile Certified Practitioner. It is offered by PMI, and I trust PMI. But again, that is an overarching certification for everything. You could have training excellence through the ICP, ACP, which is on the screen right now. You could become a Scrum Master through the Scrum, the Prince certifications that you've got right here, and as well as the journey of a Scrum Master right here. By the way, do not get bogged down with this Scrum Master. This is not a new thing. It has always been there. The major work a Scrum Master does is measure the velocity of the team, and that is the throughput, as Seth has mentioned. And they have a coaching hat on their team as well, that they want to deliver the product faster. You could become the product owner by doing Scrum certification as well, because now you have the ability to also measure velocity, but you understand the business side of the organization as well. So these are the three governing bodies and more trustworthy bodies to produce these certifications. I am working on my ACP. I've got a book right here, which I always put it on because I'm going through it. The idea is to give the exam in about a month. So maybe Anam, if you want to study with me, work together, we can do it together.
Great,
there's
thank
another
you.
question.
Sounds good. I'll get in touch with you.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, there's another question by Warda. She's asking, are those Agile certifications a substitute for PMP? And do we need to get a project manager for both as well?
Seth, do you want to take it?
Where that depends on what your aspirations are. I'll share an example, maybe Ms. Anna, I'm sorry, I'm going to pick on you. I feel certifications are, again, secondary. Your work experience is something, that you're going to showcase on your resume. It's something that you're going to talk through during your interview. So there is no work experience. Certificates and whatnot, sure, they help in terms of, exemplifying the experience that you already have. They help you add more credibility to the profile that you already have. But just doing the certification won't secure, most likely it won't help you secure a job, right? Miss Anam, she recently, restarted with the industry, and she's taken up, I guess, a project coordinator role, ma'am. With the company. So her idea is that she has a lot of experience to show for it, plus she's working on certifications, plus she just directly wanted to tackle certain positions, certain roles, so that she can then grow from there as a professional. So I don't think there's a shortcut. Certifications will help you get to your goal, but they will not offer you a shortcut to directly reach where you want to go.
And Seth, I was thinking maybe let's give a reality check to our audience as well. The industry knows the buzzwords now. For example, back in the day when data science was, it's still so hyped. None of the HR companies really know what the heck a data science is. They always confuse it between data analyst and a data scientist, and maybe both will be doing the same job. So similarly, the industry knows PMP. The industry knows Scrum Master. The industry knows, I think ACP is now becoming the highest earned certification at this point. So I think it's going to take another 2 to 3 years for the industry to get acquainted with these buzzwords, such as Agile Certified Practitioner. There's a thing such as that. If you really want to stay abreast with the industry, I would build on what Seth said. You have the experience to substantiate it, but as well as a certification to say, you know what, I mean what I'm saying. Here you go. You've got a certification as well. So I would support PMP as a foundation, and please don't quote me on that, and just talking by experience, nothing else. And that is getting a PMP or a Scrum Master certification will definitely get you out there. This is what I believe. You may disagree, Seth.
No, completely aligned with you there. Also, something I want to mention, somebody on the chat asked, is PMI going to die out or something in the future? PMI, I was very concerned, to be honest. I haven't done a PMP ever because of whatever reasons. I felt that there were other certifications, and if I had to spend the money, I would rather spend it on something different. Nonetheless, I had concerns about PMI as an institute because they were too orthodox in their approach and certifications. Now, this is again, they practicing Agile. They came up with a new module of Agile within the PMP course, number one. Number two, they came up with a brand new certification, ACP, So again, goes on to show the agility that an institution who's preaching project management is practicing. So that is why I guess why Kanza is saying it's a reputed institute and it's a reliable one, and they're taking steps to ensure they're also ahead, like they're also staying abreast with the changing needs of the industry. So yeah, you can do a ACP, you can do a CSM Part 1, or you can do a PSM. PSMs are generally more complex. The co-founder of Scrum Alliance and Scrum.org, they had some visionary disagreements, I guess, and he started Scrum.org, one of the co-founders. So he said that learning is lifelong, and he wanted to focus more on the quality of the certification. So yeah, PSMs are less expensive but more difficult to clear. Scrum Alliance CSM, the first certification, it's more expensive but easy to clear, if that helps. Yes, Juser, I guess you have a question.
Yeah, I just want to add a comment here. I do audits of projects. So I've been doing it for the last now 9 years, and at CIBC and now at Manulife. So in the projects, we do the audits of the waterfall, we do the audits of the Agile system also. So there's a difference, yes, and the documentation part is what the auditors are generally looking for. I just wanted to say that the documentation part is not finished in case of an Agile project. The necessary documentation which is required is always there, but there is the approach is slightly different. Okay, and the other part I just wanted to tell the audience that there's something new which has started, which is called Agile auditing. So we are doing Agile auditing now, and that Agile auditing is sort of the principles which are there for Agile that have been adopted, and the approach has been changed in doing that. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those lovely comments. Again, going back to the 4 values, one of it does say that you want to focus on the working software over documentation. By no means the items on the right are less important. Again, I'm repeating it. Documentation is important. Planning is still very important in Agile. But the idea is that don't get too hung up on it.
Yep.
Without documentation, what are you going to show your stakeholders? If you're transitioning into another team, what is the KT that you're going to give, the knowledge transfer, right? So documentation is still very, very important. The goal is just to minimize the overheads. Thank you, sir, for those comments. And the other comment that he had was around auditing. We in Agile coaching, again, good or bad approaches, I'm not going to comment right now, but how do you measure how agile you are, the agility of an organization? So companies have come up with questionnaires and a matrix to gauge and assess the level of agility that you have as a squad or as a team or as an organization. And then there are different levels and the different characteristics that you demonstrate at those different levels. So thank you, sir, for those comments. You have another question, I guess? You've raised your hand, or?
Well, I think just forgot to put it down.
Put it lower down. Okay.
That's right. Thank you so much for your question, and thank you, Seth, for answering it so well.
No, thank you, Kenza. I love the energy. Like I said, always happy to do more collaborations, and I guess this was the first one. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. So, team, those of us who joined us today, we would love you to talk to us. Send your feedback on the groups that you're part of. If you're part of IBA, send us emails on IBA@alumni.ca. What is that? Wow, info@ibalumni.ca. Wow, I'm quoting the wrong emails. But if you're part of the team, if you're part of the WhatsApp group, if you receive our newsletters and our emails, please respond to us. Seth and I are happy to drill down to further methodologies. If you want to study with us, if you need any help with certifications or applications to certification, Seth, I'm speaking for yourself, but I think we both will be honored to have help you out on that end. I received a LinkedIn invitation from Sanober. Sanober, I know you, so hi to you. And you can both, all of us can reach out to all of us on LinkedIn as well. So, yep. Hopefully we're going to have another session sometime soon. But for now, if you don't have any questions, let's wrap it up.
Similar comments, if you guys want to stay connected, Firza, maybe you can share an email, info@nustian.ca, and just give us feedback, because if you're preaching something that we're not practicing, shame on us. So give us feedback. How did we do as presenters here today? What are some of the topics that you wanted to see, or what more can we improve on? Always open to feedback. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.